All right, I think we're good to roll. Hi, everybody. My name is Kate Bursey. I'm Head of Business Development at Marketing for ECPs. I'm so excited to chat with you today about websites. As you know, our agency creates websites, and websites are truly the foundation of all of your marketing. So we're excited to chat about them. I'm joined today by my colleague, Salim, and so I'm going to pass it over to Salim to introduce yourself. Maybe just talk about a little bit who you are and what you do at Marketing for ECPs.
Cool. Thank you, Kate. Hi, everyone. My name is Salim, but all my friends call me Sal. I am the Director of Websites and Account Services at Marketing for ECPs. And a question I get is, what does that even mean? Is basically everything websites is basically what I have eyes on. So from content, design, project management, development to the ongoing support. I think we built this nice ecosystem for all those teams to work together and find clarity and alignment. So that's kind of what I do on a day-to-day.
Awesome. Thanks, Sal. And yeah, so welcome everybody. We are so excited to talk about websites. They truly play such an important and crucial role in your overall marketing. It takes a lot of time and energy to invest in your website. And so we have a couple of tips and tricks that we want to go through today to help support you and your practice. So a quick agenda, we're going to go through overall marketing foundation. So why is the website the foundation for your marketing? We'll go a little bit into user experience and why that's important and why it matters. We'll talk about accessibility. We get this question a lot, and so Salim is going to speak to accessibility, what that is and why it's important. We'll talk about responsiveness for your website and then finish up with speed and performance. And we have a couple examples as well to end off the presentation. So we'll go through things in the next 30 minutes. And if you have any questions at all along the way, feel free to pop them in the chat and we'll try to get to them within the time frame. And so to kick this off, yeah, like I said, the website is truly the foundation for all of your marketing. All roads lead and point to your website. So you want to ensure that your website is set up for three main things. User journey, you want it to be considering the user experience, also lead capturing. So you want it to be highly convertible so that when patients are coming to your website, they're easily able to do things like book an appointment and engage with your practice. And then you also want to consider your branding and design. You spend all this time and energy creating a beautiful brand and foundation for your business, and you want your website to really be a reflection of that. So I will hand it over to Salim to start talking about the user experience and what that actually looks like.
Cool. Thank you. So user experience is something we hear a lot in our day-to-days, and it's something that's really important in terms of the strategy that we use to build our websites. There's a lot of words on the screen that define like what user experience is, but the way that I like to view it is make it as simple as possible, right? So understand the users that are coming to your site, understand what they're looking for, and are they able to find the things that they're looking for relatively easily, and the desired actions that we are looking to achieve relatively easily. I think the other piece to it also is we are looking to be authority figures in the space, right? So the content that exists within the site should be credible. The user should find it valuable, while also being desirable and useful, right? So I think we've all been to those websites where you're hoping to find an answer to X or Y or solution, and it's really hard to find, or it's hidden in some weird page. A lot of the time and energy we put in is to make sure that that experience is optimized to create the best experience possible for the users that are coming to your websites.
Awesome. And on that note, what kind of things do you think lead to a bad user experience?
Yeah, I think sometimes we overwhelm the users that come to the website by showing them everything that is offered and kind of showing them too much, right? So I think optimizing it for where majority of your traffic is coming for, the majority of questions or resources they're looking to get resolved. Is usually the best solution. But I think if we try to do too many things, it becomes unclear, it becomes gray, it becomes a little foggy.
Totally. I think sometimes we get caught up in search engine optimization and wanting to put as much content as possible on the websites to ensure that people show or that your practice shows up. But I think making information really clear, using images, using bullet points are things that people can do just to make that user experience a little bit better.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's always that balance between getting a ton of clicks and views and impressions onto your site. But then there's also like the quantitative side to it. It's like, are those the actual clicks and views you're looking to get? And are those the ones that are actually converting and showing up in your practice?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we'll go into accessibility. What even is accessibility?
Yeah, I think we're familiar with accessibility in like our day-to-day world. Like we see the braille on signs, we see the handicap parking spots. Digital accessibility is a bit more vague, it's a bit more new. But the simple way I like to explain it is we're trying to create equal access and equal opportunity to everyone, regardless of the circumstances within their lives. So I think we usually go to the extremes where we, if they have like a physical, visual, or hearing impairment, like how are they going to navigate and use the site? It's extra important for us as we're in a medical industry. So we're held to certain guidelines and rules that we have to follow. The rules are a little bit more new. There's a lot of room for interpretation, to be honest, depending on where you live, what that state or province has instituted. But at a high level, we're trying to make the overall experience better for all users and making sure the ones who we may need to adapt to a little bit more are also having that equal opportunity and equal access. There's a few of the things that my team regularly does on a day-to-day to make sure we're optimizing our sites for accessibility. So the first main one is we need to regularly audit our processes and the things we checked. It's an ever-evolving world, so we need to make sure we're staying on top of it. We need to make sure that we're tackling the main impairments as well. So visual or color blindness is definitely more prominent than people may believe. So making sure like the contrast between our colors are good. So like the extreme example would be like off-white backgrounds with off-black text to make sure that it is the highest level of contrast so that everyone can see it properly. We see that a lot in our government sites where they have to have that maximum level of accessibility. ARIA, which is accessible rich content. This is more development, but we need to make sure that all of our websites can be read through screen readers. So to make sure they have equal access and opportunity to everything else. And then as well as like different mediums of content that we provide on our website. So if we're adding videos, we need to make sure that they have captions, and I'll be a little bit more specific. They need to be custom written captions. I know a lot of times YouTube or other service providers will use auto-generated captions. Those technically aren't accessible because they haven't been validated by a person. And then the main thing is just continuous education. So like I mentioned before, it's an ever-growing space. It's an ever-changing space. New laws and regulations are always coming up. So we try to stay on top of it so that you guys don't have to worry about it as much. So you know that we got it covered. But the main tip here is focusing on accessibility is very empathetic and human focused. Keeping up with the best practices and remaining up to date is also very important, but as a whole, putting time and energy here will create a better user experience for all users. Accessibility is sometimes just more tied to specific types of users.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that we invest so much time into creating environments within our businesses that are empathetic and kind and that align with our values. And so accessibility through the website is just a way to extend that into the digital space as well as within the actual practice.
Cool. These are some misconceptions that we get from time to time. So overlay widgets, it's kind of hard to explain. I kind of wish I had a screenshot here, but you will see them on sites that have that little accessibility stick man in the corner. The reason we kind of steer away from this is that it's more of a band-aid solution. It doesn't actually tackle the true essence, what accessibility is. It's kind of like a facade of accessibility. So true accessibility needs to be monitored and basically approved by a human, because technology is good at a lot of things, but interpretation is not one of those, and qualitative side of it is not one of those either. So it may pass those accessibility checks, but the qualitative side of it will definitely lack a lot. There's a lot of human nature and tendencies that you can't check for if you rely on an overlay widget. I think the other piece to it also is anyone that usually has some form of ailment or disability, they already have the technology available to them. We just need to make sure that our websites are able to access them. So that is where like the ARIA code comes in. A lot of the overlay widgets have features that may seem useful at a high level, but anyone with an ailment or disability can't even access them, to be honest. It's all through their technology that they already have. The other piece to it is being 100% compliant possible. And to be honest, it rarely ever is. The essence of accessibility is always to push for greater and better outcomes. I think the best examples are always like the government sites where you go to them and they're very limited in what they can do and how they lay out the pages and things like that. We luckily don't have to go to that extreme level of compliance, but we are in like the middle area a little bit. So a lot of times what we are looking for is a push forward, and a lot of times what individuals who have these ailments or disabilities looking for is that we are trying to make their experience and situation better. So one main thing that we do is always add like an accessibility statement where we're talking about all the things that we are doing, the guidelines and rules that we are following, but also giving them the opportunity to provide us feedback or ask us questions if we can make it better.
Awesome. And what would you say are the risks associated with not having an accessible website?
Yep, it can vary based on where you're located, but at a high level, there are fines that can come per infraction. So I think there are many different ways that it can come up, but let's say an easy example is if we have videos on our sites that have auto-generated captions that haven't been validated, there could be a fine per infraction or basically per user that has complained about it.
Right. And from a search engine optimization standpoint, not having an accessible website also could potentially harm your search results because Google wants you to have an accessible website. So that might be something to consider as well.
Yep, agreed. We kind of touched on this one a little bit. So sometimes we talk about accessibility, that it's only for users with ailments or disabilities. But that's not always necessarily true. There's a lot of times where we have temporary disabilities. I think a great example is like if I go snowboarding and break my arm, the way I will use my technology and use the websites that I access will be different. So we always usually jump to like the extreme situations, but it's also everything in between. So we're creating better user experiences for all types of users. So the next thing we wanted to run into is responsiveness. And when I say responsiveness, it's how your website looks on varying screen sizes. So the timeline that we have on the slideshow here is kind of showing what percentage of traffic going to websites is coming from mobile or tablet devices. So about 9 years ago, it was a little less, but as technology is growing, as technology is evolving, it is increasingly becoming more and more relevant and prevalent. I think if we go to the next slide, we kind of talk about where do we want to put our time and attention? Like, is it desktop? Is it mobile? The answer is kind of both. So we should be optimizing for good experiences on both ends. I think anytime where we push towards mobile first design or desktop first design, we're neglecting different parts of your user base, and we don't want to do that, right? We want to make their experiences as good as possible, and minimizing any frustrations or negative outcomes. I think sometimes very small things that we can do to optimize this is when users are coming to your site on a mobile device, it's much easier to call than it is to do a form fill. And then when we're on desktop, it's vice versa. So optimizing those experiences will help increase the return on investment that you get from your marketing and your website. And then the last one, speed and performance. The reason we put these ones together is they kind of go hand in hand a little bit. But one thing I always like to say about websites, it's a lot of small to medium things done really well. So speed is always important. I think if you asked agencies 4 or 5 years ago, they would say this is the most important piece to your marketing and your website. And I agree, it still is. It's changed a little bit though. So before, when we used to talk about speed, it would be how long it takes to load your website from start to finish. Now it's a little bit different where it's based on speed index. It's how long it takes for your site to become visually loaded and usable. So like there's slight nuances, but the essence of it is how long does it take to be functional? It doesn't need to load everything and be completely ready, but like if a user's on it, could they start using it? The one thing I always like to emphasize with speed and performance is there will be always things that have negative impacts on it, and then it's about finding the balance. The best example I usually have of this is even adding tracking of any sort will add about 1.5 seconds to your load speed. But we all know it's better to have that traffic or have that tracking and data rather than not.
Exactly. Are there things that practices can do to speed up their websites?
Yeah. So the main thing I always like to say is like everything in moderation, right? So if we add a ton of videos, we add a ton of imagery, a lot of high resolution documents and things like that. These are more things your website needs to load. These are more things that will slow down how long it takes. But if those things provide value to either you or your users, that is also equally valuable. So it's about finding that, equilibrium between the two.
Absolutely.
I think we touched on most of this, I believe. But yeah, just to highlight the hot tip is speed and performance optimization should be a balance. So it should balance. If you have a site that's very fast, it might not be the most usable. It might not provide the best user experience. You might not be able to present and show the information in the best way. But same thing goes the other way, right? If you're doing everything and adding everything to your site and it's super slow, they're not going to stay, right? So it's all about finding that fine line and balance.
Yeah, it sounds like the balance is important, not just for speed and performance, but also for user experience, for accessibility, all of it wrapped together. Awesome. And so lastly, we just wanted to take you through some websites that we've launched. Basically, everything that we've talked about today, these 3 websites encompass those things. So I'll go ahead and play this video, and it's just going to scroll through the homepage of a website. I wanted to ask you, Salim, as well, as we go through this, what would you say is the most important page on your website? Is it your homepage? Is it your About Us page?
Yep.
Which one do you think?
Yeah, so for the most important page is almost predominantly always the homepage. So it is where you will receive majority of your traffic. Now, I get this question quite often, to be honest, and our strategy and our perspective on it is we should be emphasizing and putting the most amount of time and effort into the pages that receive the highest amount of traffic or are the largest revenue producing services that you have. So we put a lot of time and emphasis into your homepage, your practice page, and then your top 3 services.
Right. And you can see that with this example right here, a lot has gone into the homepage. There's the repeating of the hours. It's really clear. And I think the biggest thing too here is that it's easy for users to book an appointment, because that's what we want. People that are coming to the website, we want it to be super easy for them to schedule an appointment with your practice. And so there's a lot of call to actions. The buttons are prominent. And then this website is also responsive, whereas it's the same experience across mobile as well. So then I'll just fast forward to another example. Yeah, and what I really love about these different examples too is it's the branding as well. Like we touched a little bit on design, but design is such an important piece of this too. We spend so much time when it comes to our business is coming up with who we are, what we value, what color scheme, what audience we want to target. And so you really want your website to be a reflection of that. And that's what I love about this example is that they have these fun colors. You can see obviously they're looking to target a female demographic. There's a lot of photos of women on the page, lots of fun colors. So just it really gives off that high sophisticated vibe. And that's what websites do, right? They should really be a reflection of who you are. And Google reviews, that's very important as well. Always having that. You want to make it easy for your patients to be able to leave a review and then also look at the reviews. People like Social Proof, they want to see why are people doing business with you, and just making sure that's prominent on your homepage is a way to help support that. And I have one more example to share with you all, and then we'll get into some questions. Yeah, so last example in Vancouver. One tip I was going to mention as well is when it comes to your practice, often we spend a lot of time investing in the inside of our practice. And so a great opportunity to have that reflected in your website is to do professional photography. So hiring a professional photographer to come in and take some really beautiful photos of the inside of your practice, so that when you have people coming to your website to book an appointment with you, they really understand that cohesive feel between the experience they'll get physically walking into your practice through your website. So they kind of know what to expect. Yeah. Cool. I will check the chat to see if we have any questions. One moment here. But yeah, that is our presentation. Thank you all for joining today. I'm just going to take a look and see if we have any Q&A. If you do have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. If not, you can always reach out to us directly. We're happy to answer any questions on websites. We do build websites full-time, have a lot of experience with it. And so we're happy to support anyone looking to kind of start a website, get an assessment. We can do website audits. Yeah. Doesn't look like there's any questions, so we'll end there and give you guys a little bit of your time back. Thank you so much, Sal, for joining today and sharing all of your insights. Really appreciate everyone's time and hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.